If you visited James Aspie's YouTube channel, you will have noticed something quite peculiar. The channel is now called James Aspie. And for many years, the name of that YouTube channel was James and Carly. What began as James Aspie's one-man mission to rid the world of factory farming and cruelty to animals and fur-wearing hoe bitches became a man and his woman taking first-class airplane tickets around the world on permanent vacation, windsurfing, jet skiing, and above all else, playing the ukulele while repeating over and over again the same simple message about veganism. It seems that the dream team became a nightmare, and the James and Carly have, in fact, broken up. And if not today, then like within the last 48 or 72 hours, quite recently. If you go over to their Instagram pages, where there were once little red heart emojis indicating that they were in love with one another, providing a link from one channel to the other, the heart emojis are gone, the links are gone. There are changes afoot. I noticed that the description for James Aspie's channel, he hasn't gotten around to changing yet. I also haven't changed the description for my channel in like 5 years. It's annoying to click through. It still refers to them as we there, but I'm guessing soon enough these traces of the partnership between James and Carly will soon disappear. There was a time when I was doing humanitarian work in Thailand, Laos, Cambodia. I was even applying for work in Myanmar. And when I say doing humanitarian work, if you're not a wealthy person, that means that you spend much more of your time worrying about where your next gig is going to come from, applying for your next gig, looking for the opportunity to do humanitarian work rather than actually doing it. If you're a wealthy person, you can set up your own foundation. You can be your own employee or what have you. Lots of options. But I was trying to do humanitarian work while having no money of my own, which is a very precarious sort of business. And I met a woman much younger than myself, and she had never gone to university. She basically went straight out of high school into running her own humanitarian foundation, which is an amazing accomplishment. And she was not born wealthy. Now, I forget, after high school, I think she did just a 1-year college program. But in English, this is slippery, not university. But she did high school plus, I think, just 1 year at some kind of technical school. This was important to her story. Her father was a lowly factory worker, and she told me in some detail that her family was, if not poor, struggling to just barely be a part of the middle class. But when she finished school, she stayed in touch with all of her classmates, and many of her friends from high school were wealthy people with wealthy families. And she put on a series of inspirational presentations with a slideshow describing what she wanted to do in Cambodia, how much it would cost, what the outcomes were. And she gathered the donation from this social network, in the old-fashioned sense of a social network. She put the money together, she put the prospectus together, she did all the paperwork, she formally incorporated a charity in her hometown, and then set up the foundation in Cambodia and opened a bank account for it. And she was in business. Part of the magic of this is if you can get just $5,000 in donations, that would disappear in New York City or Los Angeles, but $5,000 could last a long, long time in Cambodia. You get a lot of work done, and you get a lot of good done with $5,000. She was an interesting character, and I'm really leaving out some of the most amusing anecdotes connected to this woman who was briefly a character in my life. Some threats made with a machete that broke out. And I'll always remember, so, I could speak Thai and Laotian at that time, more Laotian than Thai. But I remember going to the police station to give an account of what had happened involving this machete and so on. And they asked, why were these men fighting? What was the origin of the conflict or something? And I managed to say in Thai, there was a young woman who lived upstairs. Her skin was whiter than snow. And the policemen all sitting around, they all smiled. Yeah, that was well put. Yeah, that was a well put thing. That had a literary touch in your statement. Nobody got killed. I remembered her as being this person who managed to pole vault her career, going like straight from high school to being the administrator of her own. And it had a website. It looked legit. It had a budget. She went to being the administrator of her own NGO, non-government organization, a charity. Every single piece of paperwork, the bank account, to receive the donations, to do all the things the charity did, every single bit of paperwork was co-signed by her and her boyfriend. All these men were fighting over her, the somewhat surreal situation in which I met her, but she wasn't, in fact, single, nor was she pretending to be single. I guess they fancied themselves having a chance there anyway. And when she and her boyfriend broke up, as boyfriends and girlfriends so often do, everything fell apart, and nobody could put the pieces back together again. Even legally, there was no way to carry on, but as you can imagine, emotionally and practically, there was no way to carry on. I'm sure it was crushing as a setback when you have someone who's a co-founder of an organization like that from day one, and then you decide to dump them. In many ways, you're forced to start a new chapter. I've known many endeavors of this kind that fell apart in just the same way. I knew a husband and wife couple who started a nonfiction and philosophical publishing firm, book publishing. And when I met the guy, who I guess was the CEO, he was insisting, "Oh, no, it's fine. We're divorced, but we're still co-workers. We're managing, everything's going to be okay." And it was just like 3 weeks later, they gave up. They were like, "No, forget it. We can't work." After I met that guy, I was talking to him because I was interested in publishing my own work with him. It's dangerous. It's dangerous to mix business with pleasure. It's dangerous to mix humanitarian passions with, the type of passions that bind people together on that one-to-one basis, and that soon enough, often enough, tear them apart. I can remember a conversation with my girlfriend, and it should be said that was several breakups ago. Melissa and I have broken up and gotten back together several times. I can remember a conversation with my girlfriend where I said, no, if I formally incorporated a vegan organization, an activist organization, no, I mean, you would not be involved. You'd be involved in the sense that we eat breakfast together, probably dinner together, but you're going to hear about what's going on in my life. But no, you can't do this. And Melissa was a little bit shocked. I mean, not horrified, but she was just surprised to hear me say that. And I talked it through. This is my standard line of reasoning for many people and many types of problems. Do that thing that sympathy entails. Imagine if your positions were reversed. Imagine if it was someone else. Imagine if you were the employee in that business and you have two bosses and neither one ever really accepts that the other's in charge, and sometimes they have a fight, and sometimes they're getting along, or sometimes they break up. Imagine how difficult it would be for the other people, whether the donors, the employees, the volunteers, for all the other people whose work you're bringing together in that organization, if the two people at the top are in love with each other. And guys, that's just saying love. That's not even getting into the possibility that love turns to hatred. There are a lot of foreseeable problems with a guy like James Aspie. He has a long, long history of drug addiction and drug abuse. I'm not making that up. He's talked about that honestly and openly. I mean, that's a large part of his act, is to talk about how veganism and sobriety changed his life for the better. Well, when you get into bed with a guy like that, if you try to run a charitable foundation with a guy like that and so on, let's just say there are advantages and disadvantages. It's not my place to speculate on why James Aspie has broken up with Carly, or vice versa, why she's broken up with him. But it is my place to speculate on what it means for us. Sure, even what it means for the future of the vegan movement. And, these kinds of trite truisms about separating business and pleasure, these kinds of, commonly said phrases in our culture, they're repeated so often that they disappear into the background noise of our civilization and seem banal. But then you have an example like this that brings them suddenly into sharp focus. As recently as March 29th, James Aspie and Carly were photographing themselves together, saying they were completely in love. And now, separate YouTube channels, separate Instagram accounts, separate careers. Let me just say, I don't particularly believe that the Pope in Rome lives in celibacy. I don't particularly believe that any of the popes who've ever led the Catholic faith live in celibacy. However, you can imagine just how much more unstable and unpredictable the Catholic Church might be if it were ruled not even by man and wife, but jointly by one male and one female who are dating, in love, going through the various vicissitudes of a romantic partnership. You can imagine how much more unstable the Catholic Church would be, Coca-Cola Corporation would be, the Buddhist faith would be, any big organization. You can imagine how much more unstable it would be if it were led by a romantic couple, dating, deeply in love, sure, as they go through the vicissitudes of romance that may be extremely tempestuous, even if it succeeds. And let's face it, guys, in the vast majority of cases, romances end in failure.